Sir, you're still under oath from yesterday, okay?
Sure.
All right, you can take a seat. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Jim. All right, good morning, sir. Good morning. So, just to recap some of what we heard yesterday. When you're doing the work that you do, you are attempting to match, if you can, cartridge casings to firearms, right?
Correct.
And bullets to barrels of firearms.
Correct.
It wouldn't be possible to match a cartridge casing to the barrel of a weapon.
No, sir.
Because the cartridge casing doesn't go through the barrel.
Correct.
Only the bullet does.
Correct.
And that's where the bullet is imprinted with the lands and grooves that are inside of the barrel. The
Yes.
rifle.
Correct, sir.
The bullet is obviously it's propelled out of the gun by an explosion, right?
By gases, yes, sir.
And it's forced through the barrel, and as it encounters that rifling, it begins to rotate.
Correct, sir.
Okay. And so those marks that the bullet gets are caused by it rotating through the barrel as it's being forced out by an explosion of gas, and begins to rotate because it's encountering that metal rifling.
So the marks are being created by the imperfections inside that barrel, the land and groove impression. So, yes, you're right.
Okay. So that's, I would imagine that's a higher degree of force that's on that bullet than the amount of force that's on the shell casing as it's ejected from the weapon.
It could be. I don't know about the force.
Okay. Well, do we know whether the higher forces, if the forces are higher on the bullet in terms of moving through the barrel than they are in the shell casing being ejected from the weapon, do we know if those higher forces could have an impact on the amount of marking impressions that the bullet receives versus the shell casing?
Yes.
But we do know about that.
The pressures could vary. So if you have a higher pressure with the bullet going down the barrel, that could impact the type of marks that it picks up. Yes.
Okay. So if I'm understanding this correctly, would a higher pressure, in your estimation, lead to a greater likelihood of more definite impressions?
I don't know. It could vary.
It could vary.
Yes, sir.
What I heard you say, I think yesterday, about the Fiocchi ammunition was that it was able to mark better,
Correct, sir.
and that means it left more definite impressions,
Yes, sir.
and those more definite impressions were on the bullet.
Correct.
Okay. The Sig Sauer S-193, that's it. That's the evidence item of it. S-193, that was the weapon that you were able to match to the shell casings found at the Colt snack scene.
Yeah, so if that's our item number 15.
15.
Can
Did I just show that to you?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I have both S-181 and S-193.
Right.
I'm going to approach.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to show you S-193. And I believe you looked at this yesterday. This is the one with serial number B233959.
Correct, sir.
Could you open that for me?
could you take that item out? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, the one that you're holding in your hand now, you want a glove?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah. The one that you're holding in your hand now, that is the weapon that you matched to the shell casings from the Colt's neck scene.
Correct, sir.
Okay. Could you hold that up for the jury? Thank you. And then there was another SIG pistol that you looked at, right?
Correct, sir.
And this was serial number B341027?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This was eliminated
Correct.
as far as being the weapon that discharged the shell casings.
Correct.
Okay. Could you hold that up for the jury? All right. That was the one that had the bore sight in, right?
Yes, sir.
But that one also has rails on the bottom of the frame, right?
Correct.
And what could one do with rails like that?
You can put an accessory on there, say a flashlight or a laser sight.
A laser sight. Now, this weapon, the one that was matched to the shell casings, doesn't have rails, right?
I don't know, sir.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
So it doesn't have that accessory mounting capability that this weapon does, right?
Yes.
We also saw something yesterday, and I'm not sure what the evidence item for it was, but it was a silencer.
Correct, sir.
And that silencer was able to be mounted on that barrel,
Yes.
right? And the barrel, that was the barrel that fit into either of those SIG pistols that we just saw, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that barrel could be fit into the SIG pistols, and that silencer could be mounted onto the gun, right?
Yes, onto the barrel. Yes, sir.
Onto the barrel. And then you fired test shots with that silencer, right?
Correct.
And I think you determined, based on what I see in your report, that silencer effectively reduced the sound of the gun firing.
Correct.
Now, I don't think you measured it in like decibels, right?
No, sir.
But it was obvious to you when you fired the gun with the silencer, it was significantly quieter than without the silencer.
Correct.
That silencer is also fairly large in diameter. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
And it kind of, it's round, obviously, it's cylindrical,
Correct.
and it screws onto the barrel, but it's much wider in diameter than the barrel itself, right?
Correct.
And it would actually sits over the sights of the gun.
Yes, sir.
So, also, I think we should mention that Fiocchi ammunition is subsonic ammunition.
Correct.
And what does subsonic mean?
So subsonic means that type of ammunition goes under the speed of sound, how it travels.
And when a bullet goes over the speed of sound, what does that change about the sound that the bullet makes?
You'll hear a crack. It goes over that beat per second or that sound.
Right. So you actually hear it breaking the sound barrier. Right. But these bullets don't travel fast enough to do that.
Correct.
So, subsonic ammunition, also used in conjunction with a silencer, would lead to a significantly quieter sound when the gun is fired versus, regular ammunition without a silencer.
Correct.
Okay. there were, obviously you issued a number of reports in this case. There were comparisons of bullets, comparisons of shell casings, there were cross comparisons. You also did a firearm assessment of the various firearms that you were given by the prosecutor's office in this case, right?
Yes, sir.
They included various calibers of weapons. It looks like mostly 9mm, right?
Correct.
In your report dated February 4th, 2019, it's a two-page report, S-353. You examined also a .45 caliber 1911 type semi-automatic pistol.
Correct.
You said manufacturer unknown.
Correct.
You called it, you said it was consistent with an 80% pistol frame kit,
Correct.
meaning and it was operable, right?
Correct, sir.
It could be, it fired a bullet.
Yes.
Okay. But it was like it was homemade. Well, not homemade, but it was from a kit.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to ask some questions about the actual examination process, because I think yesterday one of the things you said is, to the best of your ability, you want to make sure that you avoid mistakes going out of your lab, right?
Correct.
What we saw yesterday in the comparison slides were pictures taken from under your comparison microscope, and there was a dividing line between various bullets and various shell casings that you compared, right?
Correct.
And all of these were the purpose of them was to demonstrate points of comparison between the two objects, right?
Points of agreement, yes, sir.
Points of agreement. Just so I understand, none of these slides that we saw yesterday, none of them were for the purpose of showing points of disagreement, right?
Correct.
All of these are just examples of where you have concluded these two objects agree.
Correct.
Okay. Some of these, now these points of comparison come from different parts of the shell casing, right?
Correct.
They can come, you mentioned the breech face yesterday, right? And the
Yes.
firing pin.
Correct.
And then there's ejector marks as well.
Extractor mark.
Extractor marks, I'm sorry. And all those are places where you could get potentially an impression from which you could derive a point of agreement.
Correct.
And what is, like, when you're looking at this, we're seeing grooves essentially cut into metal, right?
For the bullet, yes, sir.
Okay. Or we might see in a shell casing something like an impression from the firing pin.
An
right?
impress mark, yes, sir.
How many of these points of comparison do you need to see before you determine that either two bullets or either that two bullets were fired from the same barrel or that two shell casings were loaded into and ejected from the same weapon?
We don't use points of agreement, sir.
You don't use points of agreement?
No, sir.
Okay. So basically, you look at the bullet or the shell casing and decide whether you think that it matches enough?
Yes, sir, there's enough sufficient agreement there.
Enough sufficient agreement.
Correct, sir.
But it's not, so it doesn't sound to me like there's a number of areas on on the bullet or the casing that need to agree?
No, sir.
And it doesn't sound like there's any area of agreement that there's any metric for the way it needs to agree in order for it to be a comparison?
No.
And it sounds like then it's kind of just your judgment call about it.
Yes, it's my judgment call based on my training and experience. But again, it also has to meet those 2 points to make an identification or a same source conclusion, which would be when you're looking at those two patterns, that's consistent with tool marks that I would expect to see from tools that were produced by the same tool. It's consistent with. And it also exceeds the agreement, meaning that I wouldn't expect to see that type of agreement from 2 bullets or 2 cartridge cases that were fired in 2 different firearms.
Okay. Okay. It also appears that this comparison in agreement that is based on your experience, there's no corresponding measurement in terms of the depth of these impressions that you determine to agree, or the width of these impressions that you determine to agree?
No, we don't take those measurements, sir.
Okay. Would you agree with me that you could take those measurements?
No, we don't have that capability in our lab, that type of equipment to take those measurements of the depth. No, sir. No.
No. I mean, but this is the state police's lab.
Correct.
Okay. And then there was something that was included in the case report, something from IBIS tracks.
So that would be Niven, sir.
Okay. And that's where this is the database.
Yes.
This is the database that shell casings and perhaps bullets are input into to see if they can be a match to any national unsolved crime, something like that.
Correct. So not the bullet, the cartridge casing.
Cartridge casing. And then, so on these IBIS tracks, what we're looking at then is it would still have to be the result of a test fire, right?
Correct.
And the test fire would produce certain impressions on the cartridge casing.
Correct. Either the breech face or the firing pin impression.
And then those impressions would be input into Niven.
Correct.
And those impressions would be used to see if they were similar in character to other casings that have been collected in unsolved crimes.
Correct.
Okay. One thing that I noticed about these is that it appears that there's measurements of the impressions
I don't know,
on the
sir.
weapon. I'll show you.
Sure.
So I just picked this one because it's the Sig Sauer pistol that you match to the shell casings. Just take a look at that for a second.
Are you saying in this case or just,
In this case, I'll go through it, Judge, in this case.
what's the exhibit number?
This is D144.
Okay.
So this was one of the test shells from one of the firearms that was test fired.
Yeah, I think if you flip the page, you'll see which one it is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the Sig Sauer pistol that you matched to the shell casings that were found in Colt's Neck in this case, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then on this page, we see what's input is a shell casing fired from that Sig Sauer pistol, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At the bottom of this, we're going to see that there's certain measurements for the firing pin outline, the inner outline, and the outer breech face outline, right?
Correct.
Okay. Then, and so we're clear also, this was fired using a nickel-plated
a nickel primer brass case shell casing, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then that same weapon was test fired again.
Yes, sir.
Again using a shell casing with a nickel primer and a brass case, right?
It's a different shell, sir. So that's T4. That's T2.
Right.
That's case, primer, brass case.
Right. So they're both nickel primer brass case, right?
Yes.
Okay. And again, we have measurements of the impressions left by the weapon on the shell casing, right?
Well, no, they're not measuring the impressions. They're measuring the outline of the firing pin, and they're measuring the breech face. They're not measuring the individual characteristics, the actual breech face marks, sir.
This is firing pin outline, .0082.
Yes, sir. So it's measuring the impression. They're just measuring the firing pin impression. That's it. They're not taking measurements of the actual individual characteristics of the breech face or the individual characteristics of the imperfections on the tip of the firing pin. They're not taking those measurements, sir.
But they're able to take these measurements down to .082 inches, right?
Yes.
And they're able to take these measurements down to .077 inches,
Correct, sir.
right? So I guess my question is, if this thing can do this, if this IBIS Trax or Nibbin can do this,
Correct.
then this is in your lab, right?
Yes.
Okay. And doesn't this imply that there is an ability to take measurements of the actual impression on the weapon?
No,
or the
they're-
impression on the shell casing?
They're not taking the impression of those individual characteristics, those imperfections. It's measuring either the breech face or just the firing pin. That's all it's measuring. It's not measuring the individual characteristics that I use to make a comparison.
Right. But if it can take these measurements, can it look at the shell casing itself? I mean, these are impressions on the shell casing, right?
Right, it's not looking at those individual characteristics, those imperfections from the breech face or the imperfections from the tip of the firing pin.
Right.
It's only measuring the breech face. It's only measuring the firing pin impression.
Right, but, okay. I guess my question is, this thing can take these kind of precise measurements, right?
No, it's measuring, again, it's measuring the breech face, right,
Yeah.
that primer, and it's measuring just the firing pin impression. It's not measuring those individual characteristics that I would use to either make an identification or an elimination.
This thing is called an IBIS Trax HD3D match point, right?
Yes, sir.
This is what's being uploaded for review is not the thickness or the width of the inner outline of the breech face. My understanding was this is being uploaded because it's going to be relevant for comparison to other shell casings and unsolved crimes.
Correct.
Okay. So when this gets uploaded, have you used this before in your own investigations?
As far as NIBIN, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, the unit uses NIBIN to
Okay.
link potential cases together.
Okay. And it's called IBIS Trax HD3D because isn't this software capable of actually taking a full picture of the casing itself?
Yes, sir.
And it can do a 3D image of the casing, can it?
Correct.
And then that 3D image can be basically put into 2 dimensions,
Correct.
and then the examiner can look at the entire casing
in one screen so that you don't have to rotate the surface to see what's on the casing?
We wouldn't rotate this. You're just getting an image of the breech face of the head portion of the cartridge case. You're not doing any type of rotating like a bullet.
Right. No, I'm saying it on the, if there was like an extractor mark or something like that, this software can actually turn that three-dimensional object into a two-dimensional picture.
Correct.
Okay. And then it can, then it can measure certain impressions on the image, correct?
No, it doesn't measure the images. I'm kind of confused with what you're asking.
Yeah, okay. I know you don't take measurements.
Correct.
Right. I'm not saying you take measurements. I'm saying that the software is capable of doing it.
Of taking measures of movements of what, sir?
Of the impressions, of the tool mark impressions.
No, it actually doesn't take measurements of the actual tool mark impressions.
Now, okay, well, this is, just so I understand, this is not what you use to do your comparisons in this case, right?
No, sir.
Okay. And when you have used this before, this software in your casework before, what have you've looked at these impressions and what do you do with them? Do you compare these microscopically? Or do you look at them through the actual IBIS system?
So what will happen is we have a test fire. We test fire guns.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take those test cartridge cases. They'll get entered into that NIBIN system.
Okay.
And that NIBIN system is going to take a digital image of that breech face, so the breech face and the firing pin impression. And then what that system does, it compares it to other cartridge cases, crime scenes throughout New Jersey, or wherever you want to correlate, to see if there's a match or not.
Okay.
So in return, that system will bring back these images, digital images and photographs, what it thinks potentially could be a hit.
Okay.
So we would have a NIBIN tech or another examiner look at these images, and if they think there's a potential there because you're seeing those corresponding marks off of that photo, it will go out as a potential hit to the submitting agency.
Mm-hmm.
If that submitting agency wants that potential hit confirmed, we'll bring back the actual physical evidence, and then we'll actually look at the physical evidence, not at the photograph, and then we'll do a confirmation. And to actually confirm by looking at the physical evidence, just like I would do in this case, actually looking at the physical evidence, and we would confirm that hit. So that's how it would work. In this case, NIBIN wasn't involved in this case at all, doing comparison work.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I think I understand. So, to go back, what you did then was test fire the weapon, and you took when you test fired it, you shot it into a water tank, you said?
Yes, sir.
And then the water tank, I guess that's so that you can retrieve the bullet?
Correct.
Okay. And you test fired it, I think, I don't know if you said this yesterday, I think you had 12 test fires for the SIG pistol, the B233 pistol?
Yes, there were numerous test fires.
Okay. And there was also several test fires you did for the other SIG pistol. I think that it was like 3 test fires for that pistol.
That sounds about right, sir, yes.
Okay. And the those were all those test fires through the barrel that was included? That separate SIG barrel that you received? Were all those test fires, the 12 for the one SIG and the 3 for the other, were all those test fires done through that barrel that you received?
Yes, sir, either from one of the three, either the two pistols or the barrel too. Yes, sir.
Okay. But when you got the guns, when you got those SIG pistols, they both had barrels, right?
Correct.
And were some of those test fires with those gun barrels, or were all of those test fires, the 12, the T exhibits in your reports, the 12 for the one SIG and the 3 from the other, were all of those fired through the SIG pistols using that other barrel?
Yes, I have to check my notes, but
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So, is there any particular reason why, when it came to the SIG pistol that you identified as a match to those shell casing, was there any particular reason why you shot the 12 test shots for that particular weapon?
No, sir. So, again, we're using light ammunition. So I would do multiple test shots. That's common. You're looking for your best exemplar test standard.
Okay. So when you're saying you're looking for your best example or test standard, what does that, how do you know when you get there?
Because you're looking at all the test standards, and you look for your best exemplar.
Okay. So does that mean that the test standards can look different,
Yes.
even though they're fired by the same weapon
Yes, sir.
at the same time
Correct.
in a like a controlled setting,
Yes.
and then the bullet goes into a tank of water, right?
Correct.
The purpose of that tank of water, I guess, is so that it slows down the bullet,
Yes, sir.
and then it stops the bullet from, like if I fired a gun and I shot something, if I shot the ground, the bullet could like deform when it hit the ground.
You get deformed, you can get lane impressions that get wiped, they wipe out the tool marks.
Okay.
Yes.
But the water, I guess, the idea with the water is it stops that from happening?
Correct.
Okay. And then, but even if you're firing those test shots under the same conditions, through the same weapon and the same barrel, it sounds like you're going to get different results.
No. Not different results. But you're comparing one, you want to see the tool marks that are repeating. Those repeating marks from one to the next.
Yeah.
And then as you do that, you could look at your exemplars, and then you could say, that, okay, this one marked, this is your best exemplar. Or that you liked how this one marked the best, it left the best marks on there.
Okay.
So you would use that exemplar.
So they don't all look. I guess the thing I'm trying to understand is it sounds like you're saying that when you're doing these test fires, you're firing the bullets on the same conditions, same barrel, same gun into the water tank, but they're leaving the impressions being left on them are not identical.
They might not be identical, no, sir.
Okay. And then you want to find one that, in your estimation, is the best to you.
Correct.
And that's the one that's most readily observable as being comparable to the item of evidence you're looking at.
Yes.
Okay. So what we were seeing, I guess, what we were seeing yesterday was those kind of best case scenario examples from your test fires.
Correct.
So we weren't seeing the ones that didn't, in your words, mark as well, right?
Correct.
And the ones that may not have been identical, right?
Yes.
Okay. And can there be, if you're looking at a shell casing, can there be areas of agreement and disagreement?
No, I wouldn't expect to see that. If I would expect to see an area of disagreement and an area of agreement, I want to know why.
Okay. Okay. So then there were 12. It was what was necessary in this case, though. It seems like was that you had to fire that SIG pistol that you matched to the shell casings. You had to fire that weapon 12 times.
12 times, but it was also too because I was test firing it with that silencer as well.
Yeah. And how many test shots were with the silencer?
I have to go back to the notes, but I think there was maybe at least two.
Okay.
One.
Okay. The Fiocchi ammunition, you said that marked better.
Correct, sir.
So I take that to mean, can you just walk us through when you get these things? I think you first get the first set of evidence on the 26th of November.
Sounds all right to me, sir.
And then, so could you just walk us through what you do once you get that?
Once we get the evidence,
Yeah.
sure, evaluate it for its class characteristics.
Okay.
Class characteristics are the same. Then we go on and we do a microscopic comparison of those specimens to see if they were or were not fired at the same fire.
Okay. So when you get the specimens, right, either the shell casings or the bullets or bullet fragments,
Correct.
is your step one comparing them to each other?
No, step one is evaluating each specimen, whether it's a bullet or a cartridge case,
Yeah.
and identifying the class characteristics.
Okay. And then after you do that, and you say, these either have the same class characteristics or I can't tell, right? Or maybe they don't have them. But in this case, you're examining shell casings, right? And they appear to be the same type of casing.
Yes, sir.
They were all GFL 10 9x19.
Same caliber,
Yeah.
same shape of the firing pin, same breech face, parallel breech face marks,
Yeah.
class characteristics.
Okay, what I'm wondering, I guess, is more when you get these things, you've looked at them, these are the bullet fragments and bullets and shell casings. When you look at them and you say, okay, I've determined class characteristics, what is the next step after that?
The class characteristics are different, right? You can make an elimination off of the class characteristics.
Okay.
If the class characteristics are the same, then we will go and do a microscopic comparison of either the bullets or the cartridge cases to see if they were or were not fired out of the same gun.
Okay. Now, when you say if you go on to do that comparison to see if they were or were not fired out of the same gun,
Correct.
is that a comparison? That's a comparison amongst the evidence items themselves?
Yes.
Okay. Because there was also this comparison you did to the firearms that were collected in the case.
Yes, sir.
And I think the firearms were delivered on the same day that the evidence items like the shell casings and the bullet fragments were delivered, right?
Yes, sir.
So you had that all at one time.
Yes, sir.
And so I guess my question is, in terms of order of operations, do you begin by, let's say, taking, item 11, a cartridge casing, right? And comparing that to a test fire from one of the weapons? Or do you begin by comparing item 11 to item 13, another cartridge casing?
Both of them came in at the same time.
Yeah.
So I was working both cases at the same time, sir.
Yeah. Well, do you remember, so would you have a specific order to how you did that, though?
I know typically I would look at the evidence first,
Okay.
and then I would compare it to the test fires.
Okay. Because I think here, one of the things that happened is there was like a bullet fragment 25, and you weren't able to confirm whether that was fired from that was consistent with the other bullets that were recovered, right?
It was inconclusive when I did my microscopic comparison, sir.
Okay. And so, okay, so then after you've done those comparisons, but one bullet recovered at a scene to another bullet recovered at a scene, one shell casing recovered at a scene to another, then you would typically do the cross comparison where you compare it to the other weapons.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The date on these, just so I understand this, there's dates on these slides that we saw yesterday, the slides of your comparisons?
Yes, sir.
Are those the dates that you did the comparison, or are those the dates that you took the pictures, or what?
Those are the dates that I took the photograph.
Okay. So those dates don't necessarily correspond to the dates when you did the comparison.
Yes, sir.
So, for these photos that are dated December 17th, 2018, you actually did a comparison, but didn't take photos at that point in time, back in November?
No, so the date on the photograph is when I took the microscopic, the photograph of my comparison. That's the date I took that photograph.
Okay.
It's not necessarily the date that I actually looked at the evidence. That's not noted in my report.
Okay. Okay. So it's not the date where you drew the conclusions.
That's the date that, no, that's the date that indicates when I took that photograph.
Right. Right. But it's not necessarily the date where you concluded, oh, this has sufficient agreement or not.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So now you've gotten this evidence, you've looked at it, you've done some test fires, I suppose, with the other weapons, and the ammunition that you're using isn't marking as well, right?
Correct, sir.
One of the things that you mentioned yesterday was about, I think it's like ways to demonstrate that this field of forensics is trustworthy and reliable, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think one of the ways that you mentioned is obviously having peer review of your work, right?
Correct.
But also trying to avoid a situation where the examiner is coming into it with a bias about what the results are or should be.
Yes, sir.
And is one way to eliminate that potential bias that you mentioned briefly yesterday would be not informing the examiner about, all the details of the case, right?
Well, not necessarily the details of the case, but the results of my conclusions. So when I do a peer review,
But you're the examiner, right?
yes.
Okay. Okay. So go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, you're asking me about the peer review process.
Right. Well, no.
So-
I'm asking you. I'm not really asking you that. I'm asking you more. Is it important, in terms of making sure that you don't have a bias in the case, is it important for you just to get the evidence, do your work, and report your results, or is it okay for you to have a conversation with the investigating detectives about who they think did it and how it happened, and then you do your work?
No, sir. It's the first. So when we testify, we're examining the evidence. That's all we care about, is examining objectively the evidence that is before us.
Okay. So then the idea would be we don't want you to have this extraneous information. We want your results to be based on your review of the evidence and your work.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because obviously, if we did it the other way and you were allowed to have full access to the case, then, consciously or otherwise, that could interfere with your conclusions. Is that fair to say?
Potentially.
Okay. In this case, though, you notice that the test fires weren't marking as well.
Correct.
But I guess the question would be, as well as what?
The test fires that we have, I mentioned it the other day, in our laboratory, the 9mm Luger ammunition that we would use, we didn't have the same ammunition that, I guess that was that on the bullets that were submitted to us at the crime scene. The bullets that we use, the bearing surface, meaning that surface of the bullet that comes in contact with the lanes and the grooves, it was smaller. The evidence bullets that were in this case, the bearing surface that comes in contact with those lanes and grooves, it was larger. So that impacted the tool marks that it would pick up.
But then, even when, so I guess I have questions about that, but even when you got the Fiocchi ammunition, even some of those were not marking as well as others, right?
Correct.
That's why you had to shoot those 12 test shots with the gun that you ended up matching, right?
Well, again, the 12 test shots were not just from, it was also with that silencer on and with that silencer off.
Sure. I think you said 2 with the silencer, right? But I guess what I don't understand is, you're saying it's not marking as well, but how do you know that that's the result of having the wrong ammunition as opposed to not having the right gun?
No, the imperfections inside the barrel are the imperfections that are inside the barrel. The ammunition, the reason why you want to shoot like ammunition is because ammunition can mark differently. It depends on the type of propellant, it depends on the weight of the bullet, it depends on the shape of the bullet, the bearing surface like we're talking about. The ammunition that, the Fiocchi ammunition, we didn't have that in our laboratory. Typically the 9mm Luger ammunition we have, 114, 124 grain bullet. This ammunition, the weight of that bullet, it's a heavier bullet. It's about 158 grain bullet. We don't have that. It has a larger, again, that larger bearing surface. The best way I can explain this is that if you go outside to the parking lot and the concrete parking lot, it's rough, right? Those are those imperfections that would be inside the barrel. If you take your hand and press it on that concrete and scrape it, you're going to get those strident marks, right? If I take my hand again and put more pressure on there, more pressure on that concrete and press harder, it's the same mark, same imperfections. They're just going to mark differently. One's heavier marks, one's a lighter mark. And it's the same idea with using different ammunition. The tool marks, the imperfections inside that barrel are the same, but depending on the type of ammunition, whether it can mark harder or softer, that's where you get that varying degree of variation when you're looking at those comparisons. But the tool marks inside that barrel are the same. It all depends on just how that ammunition comes in contact with those markings.
But even with the same ammunition, this is what I don't understand though. Even with the same ammunition, the degree to which the weapon left those markings changed, right? Even with the same ammunition, it was different from test fire to test fire.
No, but it's not that different. The variable's not that different. The markings are still the same, but you're taking multiple shots. So, for example, I wouldn't just go into, when I was taking those additional shots, I wasn't just taking one shot at a time. I would take multiple shots at the same time, put them in the water tank, and here's my test standards. And I would use those test standards, and then I would compare those test standards to see how those marks are repeating. And then I would just take my best exemplar from that group of test standards, those additional test standards that I took.
Right.
And then I would use my best exemplar, and I would compare them to the other bullets that were at the crime scene.
Right. But you shot 12 of them because of something that something prevented you from being able to just shoot. For the purpose of comparing the gun barrel, right, to the evidence you had, right?
Right.
Forget about the silencer for a second. For the purpose of just comparing the gun barrel to the evidence you have, there was something that made it make more sense for you to shoot multiple test fires rather than a single test fire.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And that thing that made it make more sense was?
No, I was shooting the additional test fires in a batch. I wasn't just shooting one, looking at it under the microscope, taking another single shot, getting it, looking at a microscope. I shot them in a batch multiple times. So I would take that batch of additional test standards, and I would look at that batch, and I would look at the test standards, see how those marks are repeating. The marks were the same. It wasn't different marks each time, and I would just use my best exemplar from that batch, and I would compare them to that like ammunition.
Okay. But best implies that they were not all the same.
Probably not all the same, so you're never going to get everything that's exactly the same. I just used this one was my best exemplar out of that batch.
Okay. And then those other ones, did you take any notes about those and how they agreed but weren't quite the best, or do we know anything about that from your reports?
No, we wouldn't do that, sir.
Okay. Okay. So, you wouldn't do that. And you wouldn't do that because obviously what you're putting together as far as your presentation is your ultimate conclusions, right?
Correct.
And your ultimate conclusions rely on the best evidence samples that you had, right?
Correct.
And anything that was not the best or didn't mark as well or anything like that, the notes about those things are not preserved, right?
No.
Okay. And so it's impossible to say the ways in which they weren't quite right in terms of their presentation for your report, right?
No, it can. No, so we're not looking at You're not looking at. There were no differences from test shot to test shot. It's just how they mark and the degree of how they mark.
Okay. So let me go back to one thing though. So the bullet tracks, the measurement itself is what it calls the firing pin outline.
Correct. That's not even the shell casing. The short shell casing, sir.
I'm sorry?
We're not doing the bullet. It's the cartridge case.
The cartridge case, it says firing pin outline, right?
Yes, sir.
And then it's measuring something on the shell casing.
Firing pin outline. Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is the firing pin outline on the shell casing?
Literally what it says, the outline of the firing pin impression. You're just measuring that.
The outline left by the firing pin.
Yes.
So,
So if you have if you have a firing
Can I
pin,
see
right?
counsel for a second, please?
so the firing pin outline is the impression from the firing pin
Correct.
on the shell casing.
Yes, in the primary. Yes.
Okay, it's not a fact about the shell casing. Like when the shell casing is designed, right? It's manufactured, and it is all the shell casings that are manufactured, same caliber, by the same company, those are all designed with certain specifications, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the statement in these reports about the firing pin outline size is not a statement about the manufacturing standard of the shell casing, right?
No.
It's about the outline that gets left by the firing pin of the weapon.
Correct.
Okay. So that firing pin of the weapon that we saw, right, can leave different sized markings on the same ammunition.
No, so that, again, we'll just go over the firing pin, the tip of the firing pin, right? It's a circular firing pin. When you pull that trigger, the firing pin is hitting that primer. It's detonating that primer. That's what fires that cartridge case.
Sure.
So that firing pin, once it hits that primer, it makes a crater from that pin hitting it. All that is doing there for NIBIN is measuring the crater, so to say, from this point, from the 12 o'clock position to the 6 o'clock position.
Right.
It's just taking that measurement of the crater and the firing pin on that primer.
Right. And then but the measurements it takes from shot to shot using the same weapon and still using nickel primer brass case shell casings left different size impressions from the firing pin.
It could.
Okay, so those are different marks in terms of their size.
Right, but it's not actually physically measuring the firing pin. It's measuring the crater that it hits.
I understand.
Right, the crater that it's causing.
Right, it's measuring the impression on the shell casing.
Yes, the impression
Right.
on the shell casing.
But the impression on the shell casing is the thing that you use to determine if two things are like or if two things are unlike, right?
No, it's not. I'm not looking at the size of the crater of the impression. I'm looking at the tool marks inside that impression.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is, do you agree that the same tool, right, fired at the same, relatively the same time, using ammunition of the same composite, can create different sized impressions?
Difference, I get it. I assume it can.
Okay.
But again, you're not talking about the tool marks inside the firing pin impression, the tool marks on the imperfection on the tip of the firing pin. You're talking about the firing pin impression, the crater that it's leaving.
Yes.
On the primer.
Yes, that's right. I am. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand that the same tool fired at the same time with the same ammunition can leave different sized markings.
The crater of the firing pin? Yes.
It's an impression, is it not?
Yes, I'm agreeing with you.
It's a tool mark impression, right?
Correct.
And it's a tool mark impression that can create different sized impressions even when fired at the same time using the same ammunition.
Again, I don't take those measurements.
I'm not saying you do.
Right.
I'm just saying that this is a thing that happens.
Can it vary by thousandths of an inch? Yes.
Okay, well, your microscope, what's its maximum magnification?
It could go up to over 100 times magnification.
Right.
But we're not talking about the same thing right now.
We're not, but when we're talking about 1/100th of an inch,
At this point, I have to object. This has been asked.
Yeah, he's asked and answered this many different ways, many different times. So you're talking about two different things. If you want to try to specifically ask something, but what you have asked him right now, you have asked him several different ways, and he has answered it the way he's answered it. I'll just leave it that way.
so You requested the ammunition, the Fiocchi ammunition, right?
I'm not sure if I requested it or if the prosecutor's office had that ammunition
Okay.
and let me know. So I don't recall, sir.
Okay. I think you said yesterday that you were doing these test fires and the ammunition you had wasn't marking as well, right?
Yes.
So you were the one that came to that conclusion, right?
Yes.
Like maybe I don't have the right ammunition, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then you look for it at the state police lab, right?
Yes.
Because you want to use state police ammunition if you can, right?
Both. So we use our ammunition, but it's very important to use like ammunition. Yes, sir.
Right, but one of the things you said yesterday was that you don't really like taking ammunition from outside sources
Correct.
because you don't know where it's been,
Sure.
and you don't know if it could be damaged or something like that. So it's better to use the ammunition that you have at the armory if you can, right?
Yes, ideally, yes, sir.
Okay. And typically, you said you don't like accepting outside ammunition, right?
Yes, sir.
Unless there was a reason for you to believe that it was reliable and useful, right?
Correct.
Okay. This property receipt that you saw yesterday, S351, it says that the ammunition was requested by you for further testing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that sound accurate?
If that's what's in my notes, yes, that's accurate then.
Okay. How did you know that the prosecutor's office had that ammunition?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know. Because,
I could have asked it, could have requested it from there, because again, it's best to use like ammunition.
but, I mean, in your typical shooting, there's not going to be a box of ammunition lying around at the crime scene, right?
I don't know, sir.
Well, is that typical in your casework that you receive a box of ammunition?
No, sir.
Okay. So how did you know that the prosecutor's office had this?
I didn't know if they had it or not.
You just asked them, hey, if you happen to have a box of Fiocchi ammunition, can you send it my way?
No, it would be along the lines of the ammunition that we have. We don't have this type of ammunition. That's not unique, common ammunition. That Fiocchi ammunition that you have in your hand right there.
Sure. But you requested it from the prosecutor's office.
Yes, because again, the ammunition that we had in our reference collection wasn't the same as that type of ammunition, the bullets that were in this case.
Right, but like there's somebody who works at state police who can tell you, like I'm sure there's some kind of person who can obtain various ammunition, weapons, things of that nature, right?
No, sir.
There's nobody who can buy ammunition. There's
We
no
can.
procurement.
What's that?
You don't have a procurement division?
No, we procure our own ammunition here.
Okay. So, but instead of doing that, you asked the prosecutor's office if they happen to have Fiocchi ammunition.
Correct, or the same ammunition that was used at the scene. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess I'm just confused because if it's atypical to accept outside ammunition, right?
Correct.
Because it's unreliable potentially, right?
Correct.
And it's atypical for boxes of ammunition to be left at crime scenes, right?
Correct.
Why would you assume that the prosecutor's office had a box of reliable ammunition unless you already knew that they had it?
I didn't know they already had it, sir. If best case scenario, you want to use test fires like ammunition. Typically, you're right, we don't use ammunition from outside agencies, but if there's an instance where we cannot obtain that type of ammunition, we would request the ammunition and use it for test fires. We do procure our own ammunition, but we don't have our own credit card. It's a state agency. For us to get any type of ammunition, it's a process. I don't know where you would actually even find that ammunition from a local store. So for exigent circumstances or under certain circumstances, we would ask if the agency had the ammunition. We would test fire it to make so we're using like ammunition.
But you requested this from the prosecutor's office specifically, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's why it's on that property receipt.
Yes.
Okay. Also on the property receipt from November 26th is a synopsis of the case where it states that Paul Caneiro is suspected to have disassembled and or altered firearms by exchanging the parts.
Yes, sir.
That statement wasn't something that came from you, right?
No, sir.
Somebody else put that in there.
Correct.
And that statement wasn't the result of your ballistics investigation, right?
Correct.
So, and this evidence receipt is from the 26th, which is prior to you having this ammunition, right?
Correct.
And so that has to mean that whoever put this on here, put that statement on here prior to you doing the testing with this ammunition, right?
Yes, sir.
And do you know who put that statement on that receipt?
No, sir.
Do you know why they put it on that receipt?
That's typical. Every case that comes in, it has a brief synopsis of the case. It's every single case that we get in.
Okay.
People put information on there, so that's typical.
But why is it on here that Paul Caneiro is suspected of exchanging or altering firearms parts prior to you doing any case investigation in terms of ballistics?
It's typical.
Typical.
Yes, on that receipt, it will tell you. It says brief history of the case on that evidence receipt.
And then 2 days go by, and this box of ammunition arrives at the ballistics unit, right?
Correct.
Did you receive, and then all the test fires that we saw as far as the comparisons were fired by, were fired using the Fiocchi ammunition?
Correct, sir.
Okay, so none of the slides from yesterday that we saw used anything other than Fiocchi.
They might have. Again, I'd have to check the notes, but I originally shot our own ammunition from all those firearms,
Yeah.
and then I would take additional shots with the Fiocchi ammunition.
But the Fiocchi was the best,
Yes.
because the original ammunition was not as good.
Correct, for the bullets, yes.
Okay. And so then all these bullet shots that we see from the photos are from December 17, 2018. These are actually all comparisons of one bullet to the other. And the ones dated November 28, 2018. You're not sure whether those are Fiocchi or whether those are the test bullets that you had originally?
Bullets are the Fiocchi ammunition, sir.
Okay, all the bullets are the Fiocchi ammunition. Okay, got it. Got it. To get the bullets, you have to fire the entire cartridge, right?
Correct.
You can't extract the bullet without firing.
Correct.
Okay. And then there were 15 test shots between the SIG pistol that with the rails on it and the SIG pistol without the rails, right?
It sounds about right, sir.
Okay. This was the only box of Fiocchi ammunition you received?
Correct.
Okay. And then there's only 12 bullets, it looks like, missing from this.
12 bullets missing, sir.
What I'm just showing this to you. You see the empty spaces?
Correct, sir.
Looks like there's,
There's 12.
okay.
For the record, that is
This is item 21, which is S195.
okay.
12 missing from this,
Correct, sir.
which is the only Fiocchi ammunition that you got from the prosecutor's office.
Yes, it's the only box ammunition from the prosecutor's office.
Okay. But there were 15 test shots.
Between the two SIG pistols.
Right, but again, that's using additional ammunition from our lab as well.
Okay. The guns that were recovered were mostly 9mm, right?
Correct.
Now, some of them, it looked like, had a right twist that was polygonal.
Yes, sir.
And I guess that means it leaves a different mark than just a regular right twist.
No, sir. It's a different barrel. It's barrel rifling, so it's cut rifling, which you literally cut the grooves in there, as opposed to polygonal type rifling, where it's metal displacement, where you're not getting those cuts in there. So it's different rifling characteristics. So just, again, those are class characteristics. Cut rifling, the poly rifling, it's different. They're two different barrels.
Right, but don't they produce, maybe they don't, I don't know. Do they produce the same impressions? Does polygonal rifling produce the same impressions on a bullet as traditional rifling?
No, so the rifling would be different. Again, it's cut, would be your traditional cut rifling, and you get defined shoulders. Where if it's polygonal type rifling, it's metal displacement when they're cutting the lands and the grooves. The lands and the grooves would be the same, whether it's 6, 7, whatever, or the direction twist would be the same. It's just how the rifling is cut, so it leaves different type rifling. It's not cut, it's poly. So
just so I understand, that would mean that you'd have to look at it microscopically to know if there were differences from which you could identify it as unique to that firearm.
no, sir. So the difference between cut and poly rifling on the bullet, you can tell. You don't have to do a microscopic comparison. You can just look on the regular stereoscope, and the rifling is different.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. So
correct.
so basically, the polygonal rifling produces something that is different in kind from the regular rifling, such that you don't have to do microscopic comparison to see the difference.
Correct, sir.
Okay. But there was still two 9mm Luger pistols, right?
Correct.
And both had a right twist.
Correct.
And there was a 9mm Walter pistol
Correct.
that had a right twist.
Correct.
Right? And obviously, in the absence of knowing anything further, any one of those weapons could have fired the cartridges in the case, right?
No, not the Walther, sir.
Because you eliminated the Walter.
Correct.
And you eliminated the Walter based on, it looks like a comparison to specimen 25?
No, 25 would, yes, because the landing groove impressions, the width was different.
And
Set the class elimination.
The 25 was a bullet fragment, right?
Correct, sir.
And 25 you had compared to other bullets in the case. You had compared it to 11, 12, 17, 20, and 26.
Yes, sir.
But 25, as compared to those, was inconclusive, right?
Yes, sir.
You couldn't determine whether 25 was fired by the same weapon as those other ones or not.
Yes, sir.
But you knew that those other ones, those 5 other ones, were all fired by the same weapon.
Correct.
So 25, we're not sure about when we get to the point of looking at it microscopically compared to these other weapons, right?
It's inconclusive, yes, sir.
Okay. But then 25 is the one that you used to eliminate the Walter,
Correct.
not one of these other bullets that you had identified as actually being like in kind to the others collected.
Correct.
So, but because 25 can't be compared to the others conclusively, the Walter at that point, we can't make a statement about whether the Walter, just using that information, could or could not match those like in kind bullets.
I'm sorry, just repeat that again.
You use 25 to
Right.
eliminate the Walter, right?
Yes, based off of class characteristics, yes.
But 25 was inconclusive as to the being like or unlike from the other
It
bullets,
was inconclusive to the other bullets,
which you
correct.
matched to each other, right?
Correct.
And those bullets, we don't know if, we don't know based on just 25, it would have been inclusions or exclusions from the Walter.
No, they would have been excluded from the Walter.
And 25 is the inconclusive bullet in that range of bullets, right?
25 to those 4 bullets are what we're talking about, yes, that's inconclusive.
Right.
But both are eliminated to the Walther.
But your report specifically says, so I understand this, that 25 is the one that you used to eliminate the Walter, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Redirect.
Yeah. Sergeant Clayton, I don't think I heard it yesterday, I don't think I heard it today. But just to be clear, you never testified that the silencer was actually used in this case, correct?
Correct, sir.
Did you actually identify marks on the silencer?
Yes, sir.
Based upon test firing bullets through the silencer,
Yes, sir.
were there marks on those bullets?
Yes, sir.
And were they on the bullets that were located at the crime scene or at the autopsy from 15 Willowbrook?
No, sir.
So you're not saying the silencer was used, correct?
No, sir, I don't know.
You're saying that it just could fit on that barrel.
Correct.
Now, 25, New Jersey State Police item number 25, that was something that was inconclusive in compared with the other bullets that were found in Colston, correct?
Correct.
And I think, if you need your report to refresh your recollection, item number 25 from the state police, you indicated it had a right-hand twist. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to determine the number of lands and grooves?
No, sir.
Okay. So, is that why it's inconclusive?
So it's inconclusive. There's just, again, microscopically, There's just a lack of tool marks on there. So when I'm comparing them to the other bullet specimens, it's inconclusive. There's not enough tool marks on there to make any type of either a positive or elimination conclusion.
Okay. And item number 25, just to be clear, I'm going to show you S349 for identification. Item number 25, where does that come from?
Oh, just figure I left my glasses in the car. But yeah, this is a bullet fragment removed from the head of Jennifer Caneiro at autopsy.
So that's a fragment, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, I just want to be clear. Did you say the Fiocchi ammunition that you used with the GFL 10 9x19 headstand, did you say that was common or less common?
It's a less common, sir.
Okay. But that ammunition that we're talking about that you were ultimately provided by the prosecutor's office, that came from ultimately the basement of 27 Tilton Drive in Ocean Township, right?
I believe so. It says it on that packet, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, you're relying on information you're provided. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
With that Fiocchi less common ammunition with that same head stamp, GFL 10 9x19, is also the same cartridge cases that are found at 15 Willowbrook and Colts Neck, correct?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Judge, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Cross.
Two questions. So, based on the prosecutor's redirect, what I understand you saying is that your conclusion would be, in terms of the bullets found at the Colts Neck scene, those bullets were not fired through the silencer.
I don't believe so, sir.
They didn't have the same markings, right?
Correct.
So your conclusion is those bullets at that scene not fired through the silencer.
I didn't have a conclusion on that. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't believe it was, but I didn't come to a definite conclusion that either it was or it wasn't.
Okay.
I don't know, sir.
You didn't conclude it was, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, does the state police in general look to the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office as a supplier of rare ammunition?
No.
I'm just going to object. This has been asked and answered. It's just.
I got it.
The question is being withdrawn, I assume then. So, sir, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.